What is going on, guys? So if you watched any of my videos, you should have guessed that this channel is dedicated to Python web development. And that's because I work professionally as a Python web developer, and also that's the thing that I'm passionate about. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you some things that I think are going to be important for you to learn after you get a job as a Python web developer, or let's say when you start to feel comfortable building web applications in Python and you want to improve further, but you're not sure what to learn next. So if that sounds like an interesting topic for you, then let's dive in. And the first one is databases. Yeah, I know. In order to build pretty much any kind of web application, you need to have at least some understanding of databases. And this is not debatable. However, nowadays it becomes simpler and simpler to build web applications without even touching databases that much. We have a lot of different ORMs. Django provides its own ORM. We have SQL Alchemy that we usually use with Flask framework. And we have some other ORMs that are less popular, but yeah, they still exist. And when you have all of these tools available, you can start thinking, why do I even need to learn databases? But ORMs are just wrappers. What they provide is not always enough for you. They do not solve all the problems, and even in order to use ORM on a decent level, you still need to have a good understanding of databases. Okay, now let me give you a couple of examples, but from my experience. So the first one is on the project where I work now, we don't have Django migrations. So we use Django on the backend and we still use Django ORM as well, but we just don't use Django migrations. And when we need to make any changes to the database, like create a new table, create an index, change a column, all of this stuff, we need to create a SQL file and we need to write manually all of the queries that we want to execute in the database. And this project is not a side project or something, it's a real web application that is used by many users and it's in production already for a long time. That was one of the examples when just knowing ORMs is not enough. Another example is on the previous project where I worked on, we were using Flask and SQL Alchemy ORM. And honestly, being able to build complex queries using SQL Alchemy can be quite challenging. And in order to be able to do that, you need to have a good understanding of databases. Okay, let's recap. I'm not saying that you need to master databases. Even though you could do that, being able to optimize things that no one else in the team knows how to do could be a good and valuable skill to have. But you don't need to go this path. Just going a step further and learning a little bit more, I believe, is going to be a good investment. Now, let's move on to the second thing, and it is message brokers. Message brokers can have many different use cases, to be honest, but when you build applications in Python, one of the most popular use cases is to use message brokers in combination with task queues. In fact, almost on every Python project that I worked on, we had a message broker and a task queue. If you want to learn more about task queues, I have some other videos on that topic. Links will be in the description. But the basic idea is that every task in your task queue is executed in the background, outside of a request and response cycle of your web application. So basically you have a web application, which is one component of your system. You have another component, which is a message broker that stores all of the tasks that need to be executed. And the last component is a separate server that is responsible for executing all of the tasks that your message broker has. And there are different types of work that you usually execute in the background, but right now I will highlight types of work that I think are quite common. The first one is when you need to fetch large amounts of data from third-party APIs. The second one is when you need to perform a lot of time-intensive calculations, and the last one is when you need to schedule some work that needs to be executed, let's say, daily or every hour or every 10 minutes and etc. Okay, that's enough for message brokers. Like I said, message brokers can have many different use cases, but one of the most popular in Python is the one that we just talked about, and it is task queues. And learning message brokers like, for example, RabbitMQ or even Redis And if you learn them in combination with task queues, I believe it's going to be a good investment. Now let's move on to the third thing, and it is containers. With containers, we go a little bit out of scope of application development, and some people stop there because containers are not about writing code anymore. However, containers such as Docker, for example, are quite popular nowadays, and in fact, containers are becoming one of the most common ways of managing your application architecture. And the reason why you should learn containers is not necessarily because you're going to use them on a daily basis, but because in some cases, on some projects, containers will be a part of your everyday life. For example, on one project you can have a complete continuous integration and continuous deployment process set up with containers. You're not probably going to make any changes to this process yourself, but still, all of this stuff will be a part of your workflow. The other example is you might be working on a project where you need to run some services locally in containers, and it happens quite often, I would say. Okay, as I said before, containers are not about writing code. And if you just want to be a pure application developer and you don't want to go outside of your application, then probably don't need to learn them, but you should be at least aware that they are important and the adoption rate is very high and people use them all over the place. Now, let's talk about the last thing, and it is cloud computing. And to be honest, this is something with which I don't have a lot of experience myself. And part of this is because when you start working on a project that is already in production, and most of the projects that I worked on were in production when I started working on them. So in this kind of projects, you most likely already have a working infrastructure. And you can have a DevOps engineer who is responsible for clouds. And as a developer, you should know that the best way to have a deep understanding of something is to practice that. So if you don't practice something, you will not be able to understand it on a deep level. So anyway, the reason why I push the idea of learning clouds is, first of all, they're massively popular right now. It's one of the hottest skills that you can learn nowadays. And the second reason is when you know databases, when you know message brokers, containerization, Docker, all of this good stuff, and you also know clouds on top of that, then that's it. You know everything you need to build application of any size. And without a joke, it could be $1 million, billion-dollar application. It's going to be possible. So yeah, these four things, databases, message brokers, containerization, and clouds, I think you should learn in order to grow further as a Python web developer. And that's it for today. If you're still watching this video, I appreciate it so much. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Denis, and this channel is all about mastering web development and growing as a full-stack Python web developer. If that appeals to you, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to connect with me even further, you can follow me on Twitter or on my Instagram. Links will be in the description. So thanks for watching, guys. See you